Hello, this is the ANC Policy Conference live from Johannesburg. I am Sifiso Mahlangu and I bring you a special Mr. Sihle Zikalala. This is a straight talk special. This conference has got a lot of blows. We've got to bring it to you live this afternoon. Mr. Zikalala, I welcome you to the show.
Thanks, and thanks for having us on your program this afternoon.
It is 4 days of robust debate, and we're bringing it to you live here on ANN7. We've spoken to ministers, the chairperson of the ANC and National Assembly Speaker, Ms. Balekambete, but we continue the conversation. Please don't switch channels. Watch channel 405 on DSTV. We are ANN7. Babu Zikalala, let's get straight to the point. We've had robust spoken word, robust debate. Many have declined to use the word white monopoly capital. Our sources have revealed that it is particularly the ANC in Gauteng that says it should just be addressed as monopoly capital. And I don't know if removing the word white makes a difference, because it's not black people that hold the economy. Does white monopoly capital still exist?
Monopoly is monopoly. Universally, you would say monopoly has no definition in terms of race, but in the context of South Africa, monopoly has a racial meaning. Monopoly, it's when group of companies monopolize some industries for their own benefit to the exclusion of others, and they ensure that there is less competition. In South Africa, we've got monopoly, and it is the monopoly that is based on the fact that those who own means of production in the country benefited from the apartheid regime, and they are white, and therefore it is a white monopoly capital. It is also supported strongly and sponsored by the imperialist agenda. And that agenda is based in London, it's based in America in particular. Those are people who support monopolies. If you talk about monopoly in South Africa and become specific, you will take the sugar industry. Find that it is monopolized by a few companies, and you will have Hullet on the other side. On the other side, you will have Ilovu. And those are monopolies. There's no one who contests that space.
And those companies are white. They are owned by white.
They are owned by white. And Ilovo, it's owned in Europe. If you come to mining, whether you talk of any mining company, most of the mining companies that are monopolizing the mining industry are white. They are dominated, they are owned by white, and their head offices are in London or America.
Then where does Mr. David Makura get this idea that monopoly capital does not exist?
Well, in fact, it will be wrong if someone denied the existence of monopoly. But what they are arguing is that we must not elevate white as if we're against the white. And the reality is that monopoly in South Africa is white, but it is not benefiting all white community members. Some of the white, among the white society, are eager for transformation. And those are working with us in departments, they are working with us in government to see South Africa being transformed. If they say it is a racial connotation, it has a racial connotation. In the ANC, we have always defined that our struggle is against white domination. Therefore, we're fighting white domination because there is no African domination. But if there would be an African domination at that particular time, we'll then fight white domination,
why is the
black
ANC,
domination.
Why is the ANC divided over this theme of white monopoly capital? Is it because they are members of the ANC, particularly in leadership, who are captured by white monopoly capital?
No, I wouldn't want to
stand up in defense of white monopoly capital.
I don't want to say that then use word captured, but in my own understanding of the ANC is that the ANC is a contested terrain. Contested then therefore means that it has all classes. There are those in the ANC who might have benefited already from the system that is in place. and therefore would not want us to appreciate that this is the system that is in place and it is prevalent. It affects.
Are any of those people in leadership today?
We don't want to.
Are they in the leadership structure?
In the leadership structures and in membership of the ANC, you have people who have benefited, who have been part of the monopoly, of the capitalist class, who have been elevated.
The Black Land First organization says that person you're talking about is Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa.
I haven't mentioned the name of anyone, and therefore I wouldn't want to fall into trap of accusing others, because it's not only him who has been in the BEE. There are many people who have been in the BEE. You can't accuse him because we know him. There are others who are always silent partners, and we must therefore, if we want to take stock of that, be holistic. And that's why I'm dealing with a phenomena, and a phenomena of the monopoly capital, which in the world you will say it is just the monopoly. But in the context of South Africa, given the legacy of the past and given the historical injustice, we have a white monopoly capital.
So let me appeal to you as the chair in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Do you think that your province is divided between the two slates, and slate number one being that of Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa and slate number two of Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma? It has been evident from many media reports in this time that they are the two runners in this elective match coming to December 2017. Do you think the slates representing these two leaders of the ANC are dividing the province of KwaZulu-Natal?
No, I wouldn't say so. What divided the province of KwaZulu-Natal was its provincial conference. And we went through the provincial conference. We're getting united now. We're closing the ranks. Those who were observing our provincial general council, which took 3 days last weekend, from Friday till Sunday, will tell you that KwaZulu-Natal is restoring its unity. Because what characterized that PGC was the unity of the highest level. Even here, if you would hear the delegates from KwaZulu-Natal, you will appreciate that we talk from the common perspective. And therefore, people who want to project KwaZulu-Natal as divided are just wanting to exaggerate, and they also want to live in oblivion, and they don't want to live in a reality. We always caution against that, because to misinform yourself, especially about conference issues, does not help at all.
Mr. Zikalala, let me turn your attention to the land expropriation debate. The ANC has attempted, or part of the ANC has attempted, to amend Section 25 of the Constitution. The president of the ANC had allowed it, but ANC MPs voted against that. Is this policy convention going to change the direction that the ANC will view the expropriation of land? Is there going to be expropriation of land without compensation?
Well, there is an expropriation act that is being processed by Parliament. It is one issue that we must take into cognizance. But that expropriation act does not address this fundamental problem of land. What we are saying as KwaZulu-Natal is that land, people, Africans in particular, were dispossessed of their land. Whether it has now been developed, it is developed for farming, that's true. But they never ask anyone to develop land for them. It belongs to the people of this country, the Africans in particular. And therefore, our view is that land expropriation without compensation, it's a way to go. And we will argue as we continue with commissions that we must go ahead with land expropriation. We will expect that those who represent the ANC, once the ANC takes that decision and get firm to that, they will then have to go to Parliament, engage other parties, especially those that are African dominated, to process and change, amend the Constitution to have Section 25 amended to allow the expropriation without compensation.
About a few minutes ago, the Minister of Police, Mr. Fikile Mbalula, held a press conference in this very venue we are, and he said President Jacob Zuma is going nowhere. We do know that members of the ANC have called on President Zuma to step down. members of the alliance have called upon President Jacob Zuma to step down. This has been said in Parliament. Is this the findings, or is this the report that the minister is giving us from this convention? Did you suggest, or did you debate President Zuma stepping down or staying in office?
Maybe from the first day of this conference, you should have noticed that all members of the ANC attending this policy conference were unanimous in support of President Zuma. And therefore, the ANC is not going to recall President Zuma. It is a decision of the NEC. And that decision is prevailing and is binding all of us. But it's not just a question of binding. The NEC, we agreed in the NEC that there is nothing that is compelling or is calling on the ANC to recall President Zuma. And therefore, we are saying that members of the ANC, the members of Parliament, should go to Parliament and vote against the motion of the opposition of no confidence on President Zuma.
There are two startling questions, Mr. Zikalala, and I hear your response to me. But this conference is just before the elective conference. Are you suggesting that it could still happen that President Jacob Zuma has to step down just after the December convention?
No, I'm not suggesting so. I'm not going to talk about the period post-December conference because we're not yet there. But what we have right now is a motion of the opposition parties, which is in Parliament. And we have the decision of the ANC, which is clear, that President Zuma should remain as the president of the ANC. We can't be dictated, we can't fall into the trap of following the agenda of the opposition. And therefore, members of the ANC, when they go to Parliament, they must be clear and endorse the decision of the ANC, implement it.
And I put it to you, my leader, it is not only the attempts of the opposition, it is also the attempts of part of the members of the NEC and that of the alliance. The ANC taking on the stance to keep President Jacob Zuma in office. Are you saying you are distancing yourself from the comments of Mr. Solima Paila and COSATU, Mr. Blaine Zimande and the SACP? Does this split the ANC alliance, or are you going to say, well, we're going to take your recommendations later and assess them?
No. What we're saying is that there must be an urgent engagement with the COSATU and the SACP on this issue, because we've got a decision as the ANC. And if the decision of the ANC is taken by its body, the National Executive Committee, the SACP and COSATU must then engage, because it's clear that we differ on this question. And therefore, we must meet, discuss bilaterally on how we deal with this issue. But from the ANC point of view, we're clear that President Zuma is going nowhere.
I saw the response from members, the delegation attending this conference. The cheers, the chants, the slogans, people singing Uzuma Gaindao, meaning President Jacob Zuma is going nowhere. Many news agencies did not go with that story. Why do you think that there is perhaps poor reportage so far as President Jacob Zuma is concerned? Is there a media agency against President Jacob Zuma?
Well, it has always been there. The media in this country, firstly, they found President Zuma guilty without him being prosecuted. There's been a concerted campaign against President Zuma, vilifying him in the media, writing all sorts of things. And it is not surprising that such stories would not see any coverage, would not have any coverage in the media, because they always work like that. And ours is not that. We were not liberated by the media as the country. We're liberated by the ANC leading our people. And therefore, ours is to close space with the people, continuously brief them, and continuously engage them and have their views. And that's what we are doing in KwaZulu-Natal.
There's been attacks on some journalists. The organization, the Black Land First, has staged some protests outside of some journalists' homes. Mr. Mbalula condemned that action. I want to put it to Mr. Mbalula later today about why he did not say anything when journalists from this very station, ANN7, were attacked by other organizations such as the DA and the EFF. We did not hear the former public protector say anything. And even Mr. Fikile Mbalula did not, have a clerical call to protect journalists. Why now? Many people on the social platforms are saying, is it because those journalists are white? What are your comments to that?
I wouldn't want us to take the current polemics to a level of racial polarization. And therefore, I don't believe if Mbalula didn't speak so strong at that time, he was accepting that must happen. No, attack must be condemned in strongest term at any point, even if irrespective of who it is directed to.
Sir, I want to discuss the new agenda, the matter everyone is thinking or speaking about in this country, succession. And I know many comrades say to me, well, the ANC does not have succession. Is the ANC an organization that believes in tradition? President Mbeki followed President Mandela. President Zuma followed President Mbeki. Does the ANC believe in tradition?
I must be honest that there is no written, in the ANC there are written and unwritten traditions. And therefore, written traditions are clear. Unwritten traditions is like expectation, that it is expected that once you have a deputy president, that deputy president would become a president. That is an expectation. There are written principles. One of those written principles, which is also through the eye of the nigger, is that leaders of the ANC must be equal to the task of that particular moment. And therefore, on top of whether one is a deputy president or not, we must firstly say, what are the tasks of the moment? For us, as the ANC, the task of the current moment is radical economic transformation, which should find expression through industrializing in South Africa. Stop exportation of raw material. If there is a mining company that wants to mine, it must come and be based in South Africa. For us, radical economic transformation means that goods that are exported out of South Africa must at least 50 or 60% should be exported on ships that are owned in South Africa. Radical economic transformation means that land must be expropriated to those who will work land. Radical economic transformation means that we must ensure that even if you talk about financial sector, it is not a monopoly, but the space is opened. So what is important for us are the strategic tasks, rather than saying the ANC deputy president will become a president. No, we are not in a traditional homestead where you've got anointed leaders.
This is not a monarchy.
It's not a monarchy, and we don't have anointed leaders. If it was so, why would have elections?
So Mr. Ramaphosa will not necessarily become the
it is not given.
President. It's not given.
It's not given that Deputy President Ramaphosa should be the president. It's not given. It's an issue that we as members of the ANC must discuss openly.
Are you, Mr. Zikalala, optimistic that the next ANC president will be a woman?
I'm not opposed to that. If the ANC feels so, I think I would accept it. In fact, whether it's a woman or a man, it is acceptable, because in the ANC, you don't look only on the basis of gender. One of the key principles is to look on the attributes of the cadre. It must be a person with the long track record. And in the ANC, we must define clearly what do we mean by seniority. Seniority is not a position I hold today. It's not a position that a person holds. It doesn't mean that if I'm the chair of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, I'm the most senior member of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. There are those who would have been not in the leadership position, but they were there in the 70s, and they've played the role and they've been in the struggle since then till now. That's how we define seniority. And therefore, the issue of Comrade Nkosazana should not only be reduced to women candidates, no, but should be about the track record. She's one of those who arrived in the organization while she was very young, in the late 70s. It was not fashionable for women at that time to join Umkhonto weSizwe, to go to exile. And she's one of those who have led from that time until now. Whether elected or she's not elected, she has always been there. When she was not elected in Polokwane, she didn't leave the organization for NGOs or business. She remained in the ANC and led the ANC as an additional member.
Do you think that President Mbeki, standing against President Jacob Zuma, and our former president attempting for a third term, is what divided the ANC to become the ANC we see today?
Look, we at that time were in the ANC youth league. Myself and President, I was the Secretary General, and the President was Mbalula. We went to President Mbeki, was President of the ANC. And we made it clear that as the youth league, we support Deputy President. On the basis that, one, we believe that we don't need the two centers of power. A person who is the ANC president subsequently must be the president of the country. And that was our view to the then president of the ANC, Comrade Thabo Mbeki. He had his own view on the matter. But we were clear on that point. And from there, we saw serious divisions. In fact, even now, the problems in the ANC could be attributed to 2007 contestation and the divisions that found expression in that conference in Polokwane.
So do you put blame on President Mbeki? Do you think that his leadership in 2007 is what led to the ANC we see today?
No, I believe that President Mbeki should have, at that time, considered the views of the organization. But he had a right to stand. But my take is that post the conference of the ANC, he seemed like he had taken a backseat. Unlike Halima would be there in the campaigns. Whether you are elected or not elected, if you are a cadre of the ANC, you are always required to participate in programs of the ANC. We've had a number of elections, but former President Mbeki has not been participating in all of those elections. And that's why we are saying we need his participation in the organization as one of those who have led the ANC. If we have something that could close this disunity, one is to come together and say Polokwane Conference started this division, and how do we heal the divisions of Polokwane? Secondly, is to manage the processes going to the next conference of the ANC.
Let me turn your attention to democratic centralism. I've been going through the document through and through. And the one thing, Mr. Zikalala, that your document on democratic centralism highlights is a non-slate policy. And a non-slate policy to me as a political analyst is very simple. You don't try to put someone down to raise another one. It's about credit, you vex leadership. It's about what is suited for the ANC. The man delivering the report on democratic centralism, Mr. Fikile Mbalula, went to Twitter to say Mr. Ace Magashula will kill the African National Congress, but Mr. David Makura is the best to become SG. Now, how does the same leader who speaks of, unity and the year of Oliver Tambo and democratic centralism, then go and perpetuate a statement that is clearly factionalist and slate-driven? That's
no. The views of Mbalula are not factionalist. Mbalula alone, as a person, cannot be a faction. You become a faction if you become a group that peddles division in the ANC and act as a group that works together, even undermining the cohesion of structures. So we can't say Mbalula is a factionalist. But what we can say is that it was, of course, incorrect for Mbalula to go public with that view. He should have raised that view in structures of the ANC and not in the media.
We're living in a time when everything in this country can be blamed on one family, the Gupta family, and people have said, they've captured the state. Mr. Tokyo Sakhwale said, the Gupta family has broken the ANC. Mr. Solima Baila sat here and said the problem in this country is the Gupta family. And along came Mr. Mbalula this afternoon and said the Gupta family is not even a monopoly. They don't even hold 4% of government business. I thought that was startling, because why didn't anyone say these things sooner? What do you think of that?
Well, I wouldn't want, because we don't control newspapers, we don't control televisions and radio stations. And therefore, Mbalula is expressing what is correct. The reality is that there are allegations on the Gupta family, and our view is that that must be tested in the commission, which the president have agreed that he will establish. And therefore, that is clear. It will be tested there. But when it comes to the issue of monopoly, there is white monopoly in South Africa. And other people would be participating in the economy at various levels. But the real monopoly are the white people.
Tonight, you and I will discuss nationalization of the Reserve Bank, nationalization of mine, an amendment to the Constitution. But sadly for now, Mr. Zikalala, I'm out of time. Yeah, do promise to come back, please.
Well, I must say I will come back. We will just arrange time. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you for,
thanks for having us in your program.
Thank you for coming. And that South Africa and the world was Mr. Sihle Zikalala, chairperson of KwaZulu-Natal. Unity is coming back to KwaZulu-Natal, he says. This has been Sifiso Mahlangu Straight Talk. Please stay back to channel 405 on DSTV. We'll bring you all the action, all the policy debates, and all the reports from the ANC's 5th National Policy Convention. ANN7 channel 405 on DSTV. It's been straight.